people were ignoring you. We had to deal with some important things regarding this case. We've resolved them, and now we're back ready to continue. Mr. Yannucci is on the stand. You remain under oath. And Mr. Watkins, you may continue your work.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday, you told the jury that you compared the exhibit in this particular case that was played, the video, 74, after it was enhanced recently, correct?
That's correct.
And that was done in the last couple of weeks?
The enhancement?
Yes.
Yeah, it may have been a little longer than that. BCI did it for your office.
Okay. But it's recent?
Yes.
Okay. And it supplemented a prior transcript that we used in proceedings in this case before?
That's correct.
And when you identified 91, would you look at that again?
Yes. 91 is the transcript from the enhanced DVD, and that was done by court reporter Kelly Haas from Gerard Court.
Okay.
And that was done really recently, within the last few weeks.
Okay. So in order to make it sound more clear and bring out words, an enhancement was done.
That's correct.
And did you go over the enhanced version video and the transcript?
The enhanced version of the video
and this transcript,
yes,
91?
Yes, I did.
And you testified that it accurately and fully portrays what's on this?
Yes, I said there's a couple inaudibles in there. There's a couple times where she uses U.S. Marshal Bolden's name instead of mine, or vice versa when one of us is talking. But all in all, it's very accurate.
And you testified that the nearly 2.5-hour presentation to the jury yesterday was accurate and complete.
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, save and except for that, you were satisfied that these two matched?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when this case began, relative to taking a statement from the defendant, you also testified that you took a video recorded statement, which enhances is 74, during that January 17th and January 18th in interrogation at the Trumbull County Jail in 2018, correct?
Yes.
How is that video system, how does the video system work?
Well, we have a camera in the interview room. There's a computer in an office across the hallway, which is our office. What we'll do is we'll go in there and start the recording, and it's on. And when we're done, we go hit stop, and our recording should be there.
And this was a more modern technological system for the jail?
Well, it's not for the jail, it's for
the interrogation.
Yes, it was a fairly new system at the time.
When you would take statements in the past, would you often use a VHS recorder?
VHS is going back a ways, but we have used mini discs or something along those lines prior to having a system that saves to a computer.
And so this has been a modernization, correct?
Yes.
And when you get the DVD from that whole 2.5-hour tape, you had that DVD and admitted it in another court proceeding here, correct?
Well, the original, what happened was when we pressed, go ahead.
Just saying, you did use that DVD and gave it to us, the original one.
Yes.
Okay. When you were taking that recorded statement on January 17th, did you also take an audio recording?
Yes.
And would you explain to the jury why you did that?
In case of technical difficulties, what we've done, and we've done for years whenever we're doing a video statement, just in case something's going to happen, we'll take a separate audio recorder and set it on the desk. Throughout the course of that yesterday, you already heard and read along in the transcripts where it said, all right, we're going to take a break now, I'm going to stop the tape at 12:09, I think was one of those times. At that point is when I would hit stop on that little recorder, but that video that you watched kept playing.
So you have two separate recordings.
That's correct. One is strictly audio, one is audio-video.
And it protects you if one malfunctions.
Absolutely.
Okay. And when you had those two recordings, when you completed them, you gave copies to my office, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there came a time that our office, the prosecutor's office, asked for a transcript of the interview. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who did that transcript?
Michelle Notar, who was one of our clerks at the time.
And would you explain what she used, if you know?
She would have used the audio recording only, not the audio video. I want to say that's because she had a foot pedal thing that she would use to start and stop.
So in order to make the transcript, it was more convenient to use the audio rather than the video?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay. And I believe you testified on May 3rd that Michelle Notar's transcript was a result of her transcribing the audio tape.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you believe that was, at that time, a complete copy?
Yes.
Now, so you verified that the audio tape and transcript last year was accurate and total, right?
Yes.
And then you also yesterday said the DVD and transcript was accurate and total.
And I would add the one Michelle did, the same thing as the newer one, only a few more errors because she wasn't listening to the enhanced version. So there were a few more errors and things that she wasn't able to pick up on because it wasn't enhanced when she was listening to it.
Now, did I approach you about...
I'm going to object with the gentleman like to testify.
I need to explain why he did what he did.
You're going to overrule, but we'll make sure that it follows along correct.
When the session yesterday was completed and we all had transcripts, did I come up and ask you, or call you, I think it was, that there was a difference between the prior transcript that was given to the court in May with the audio tape and the enhanced version of the video?
Actually, you did both. You mentioned it here, and I said I knew it wasn't in the new one because that's what I had been preparing with. So I didn't know if I was confused or you were confused or what the case was. But then later on, about an hour later, I received a phone call from Mr. Watkins, and he found an excerpt from Michelle Notar's original transcript that wasn't included in the new one.
Okay, and tell the jury what you did and what conclusion you came to.
What I did, I came back down to work. I listened to what he was telling me. He told me that between page 48 and 49 of the original transcript, there's a section that was missing, and it was a section, he knew this because it was a section he mentioned to you folks in his opening. So what I did is I came down, I found that on page 48 and 49 of her original transcript, and then I went to the new transcript to page 126, and I found that where that section should have been, and it wasn't there. So then what I did is I put in the enhanced DVD that you folks watched yesterday, and I found that time frame. It's not there. And I'll explain why it's not there in a minute. So then what I did is I took the DVD that wasn't enhanced, I put that in, thinking that maybe when they enhanced it, something didn't merge. What I found was it wasn't on that one either. So then what I did is I got the audio only out that was taken from that little recorder, started playing that, and I found that section, and sure enough, what Michelle typed in her original transcript was in fact on that audio recording. The reason that this happened is when we used that recording system that night, when you hit record, I'm not a very tech-savvy guy. I hit record, I come back, there should be a video there, we hit stop. Next day we come into work, because obviously it was, that interview concluded at 12:26 p.m. By the time we walked her over to the jail, it's after 1 o'clock in the morning, go home, come back the next day early in the morning, go to look at the video, it's in 44 separate files. Why that happened, I have no idea. But what I did then is I called the county data department, and I said, hey, we got a problem, because they're the ones who take care of our cameras and install them and such. I said, we got a problem. Obviously, I wasn't very happy. And they said, listen, don't worry about it. What we can do is we can take those 44 files and merge them back together. And that's what you watched, is a merged version of those 44 files put back together.
And everything that they saw was totally complete, except for how much time?
What I found yesterday, based on what we were talking about, the transcript, the old transcript, 48 and 49, the part that was missing was 1 minute and 8 seconds.
And did you, per my request, put together that total NOTAR, or I should say the audio recording that was used on January 17, 2018?
Can you ask that question again, please?
Okay. I'll show them to you. Do you have any of the, we had the two videos. Which one would you load up?
93 is the segmented portion. That's loaded up.
I'm going to hand you, which is State's Exhibit 92, and tell us what that is.
This is a disc containing the audio used for the transcript by NOTAR, is what's written on here.
Now, you listened to that missing 1 minute and 8 seconds?
Yeah, last night, Gary Hetzel, one of your investigators, and I sat in my office, and that's how we came up with this.
And that, what you listened to was that audio tape that was made at the same time the video was made?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell the jury whether or not you recognize the voices in the audio tape?
Yes, there were only 3 voices in there, mine, Bill Bolden's, and Claudia Hoerig's.
And is it clear from listening to it what is said?
Yes.
And you also had made that missing 1 minute and 8 second version on a separate, which is State's Exhibit 93. Is that correct?
Yes, Hetzel put that together, yes.
And you would say today that the jury did not get everything that was said to you that day, did it?
That's correct.
And are you today saying that the exhibit that's described is accurate and depicts now everything, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. And you said that when you this is the longest statement you've taken.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I would like at this time to play that, but please report to defense counsel that 1 minute and 8 second version.
May I proceed, Mr. Becker?
I want to pay for my car neighborhood. It was easier, my husband, because it would hurt him too much to lose me.
She's a small people thing like that.
Yeah. I just like to pay for my car, but I want it to be in the right way.
For murder or something.
Between 18 and 30.
Look, that's another. Maybe that's right. Ballpark what you're paying out here.
I'm not hearing anybody that
You know what?
I'm not hearing
You know what? I mean, every fire house is out here.
Now, that was a recording, and it's accurate as you've now reviewed it,
Yes,
and you've explained what happened.
yes,
And to the best of your knowledge, we have a complete, even though the video yesterday was 99% complete, correct?
yes.
To the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what pages in the transcript are we talking about? You talked about 49 dealing with the suppression transcript location. What is the location of the missing part in the enhanced version, which is States Exhibit 91?
In the original transcript that was done by Michelle Notar, the missing segment starts on the bottom of page 48 and goes midway through page 49. In the new transcript prepared by the court reporter in Girard, it's page 126 at the very top.
So you would add the audio at that point for a minute and 8, and then it's complete as far as you know at this point in time.
That's correct.
I noticed that the pages are significantly different, like 49 versus 120-some. Can you explain why that is?
Well, this is,
I don't believe that anybody's getting a transcript.
Again, I think it's pretty obvious. Let's just go on to something else.
No further questions.
Cross?
Thank you. Good morning, Detective. How are you?
good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. After this first error was found in the recording, did you compare the entire audio recording you had versus the video recording?
I did not.
Okay. So you don't know if there's any other errors present?
I do not.
You've testified multiple times now that the video recording that was played is a full and accurate copy of the interview?
I have.
But it's not.
It was prior to Mr. Watkins bringing that to my attention, yes.
Okay. And the only part you checked was the part that Mr. Watkins brought to your attention. You didn't double check the rest of the...
No, it was late last evening, and honestly, time didn't permit.
Okay. Now, on direct, you admitted the transcript that was provided to the jurors wasn't 100% accurate, right?
I wouldn't say 100%, no.
Okay. You
Close.
said there were parts where They identify the wrong individuals as talking?
That's correct.
Okay. And there's parts that are left out and words that are mistyped?
That's correct.
Okay. And you've reviewed both transcripts, Ms. Notar's and the other transcript?
I reviewed the one by Notar a long time ago when it was done, and to prepare, obviously, the enhanced version and the new transcript is what I used to prepare for this.
Okay. And in fact, one of the errors in the transcript that provided to the jury is Ms. Hoerig is talking about Carl's brother driving them when they're in Clinton Bay, right? She says he drove us, and the transcript says to Mary, right?
Paul was driving. If you can give me a page to reference, I'll be more than happy to.
It's page 10 on the transcript for Ms. Notar.
I don't have that up here. I recall that part, and I want to say that I recall that part being an engagement part, I believe.
Exhibits.
91 is the one you're looking for.
That's the new one.
Yep, 28 in that one. Page 28 in this one?
Oh, 28 in this one.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay, that's fine. So page 28 in that one, about part of the way down, they talk about Paul driving them,
Yes,
and it says to Mary?
it does.
Okay. And it should say to the ferry?
Well, as I read along, I can't say that I detected that, or maybe that's what I thought it said.
Okay, because Puddin' Bay's on an island, right?
It is.
And how do you get to Puddin' Bay?
By ferry.
Okay, thank you. Now, in the little bit, the minute and some audio that was played, that was added, Ms. Hoerig talks about Brazil and wanting to serve her prison time in Brazil, right?
She does.
Okay. And in that interview, you asked her how long she'd get in prison in Brazil for this.
I did.
Okay. And she says 18 to 30 years.
That's correct.
At no point did she say she deserves to serve 30 years in prison.
No.
Okay. Now, going on to the more expected stuff. During your interview with Ms. Hoerig, you told her you were going to go back and look through the evidence, in this case with a fine-tooth comb, right?
Yes.
Did you?
Some things.
Some things? Okay. You were at the initial crime scene and you took photos and helped take photos of the crime scene, right?
I would help take photos and help collect evidence.
And you remember what the crime scene looked like?
Yes.
The only clothing that you found in the closet in what I would call the master bedroom was Major Hoerig's, right?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall where you found most of Ms. Hoerig's clothes, makeup, and jewelry?
I want to say that was in the basement.
It was all in the basement, right? And she had a little area set up in the basement?
Yes.
That's where her computer was?
I believe so.
Okay. Did you find any of her belongings in any of the 2 spare bedrooms?
Not that I recall.
Okay. So it looked like Major Hoerig had the master bedroom and she was in the basement.
It's where stuff was kept, yes.
Okay. And I mean, not just her stuff, she had a dressing area
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
Jewelry, makeup, clothes. Okay. I noticed from one of the pictures, there's a foosball table in the house?
Yeah, it was in like the front room.
In the front room of the house? Yeah.
Picture
It's
of
the
it.
only furniture in the front room, right?
Yes.
Did you expect that more in line with a bachelor's house?
It looked like that part of the house was under remodeling, maybe.
Okay. Now, as part of the investigation, since you were part of it and you're aware of the file, A number of the Hoerig's neighbors were interviewed, right?
Yeah, I know some guys did go talk to some neighbors, yes.
Okay. And also as part of it, you guys subpoenaed the Skybank records for both Carl and Claudia.
That, I know bank records were subpoenaed. I can't say that I'm the one that subpoenaed those.
Okay, I didn't say you, as part of the investigation, those were subpoenaed.
They were subpoenaed.
Okay, and they were obtained.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, did you ever look at them, review them?
I may have.
Okay.
You know, at the time, Sergeant Pizzula was the lead investigator, so, you know, that may have gone to him.
Okay. In her interview, she talks and tells you that she paid for everything in their relationship. She paid for all the groceries. She paid for everything, correct?
That's correct.
Did you go back and look at the Skybank records to see if that was true?
I did not.
Okay. She told you during her interview that she wired money to Brazil to her family on multiple occasions, somewhat regularly, right?
Yes.
Did you go back and check to see if that was?
I believe that was accurate.
That was accurate?
I believe that was accurate, yes.
Okay. And the $9,900 she wired to Brazil, that was her own money?
Yes.
Okay. As part of the investigation, you got other records from Skybank regarding the safety deposit box she had there, right?
Yes.
Do you remember what those records were?
Meaning?
What sort of evidence did you get about the safety deposit box?
I don't recall what we got.
Okay. Did you try and get video evidence to show when she went in and out of the bank?
Yes, I think there was video.
Okay. Do you remember how many times she visited the safe deposit box?
I do not.
Okay. Was there a search warrant done on the safe deposit box?
I believe there was.
Okay. Do you know if anything was found?
I don't believe so.
Okay. During her interview, she tells you about calling her family and all the phone calls to Brazil after Mr. Hoerig shot, right?
That's correct.
And you guys or somebody had subpoenaed her cell phone records?
Yes.
And those were in the file?
Yes.
Did you go back and check the cell phone records to see if there were records of the phone calls to Brazil?
I do recall calls to Brazil.
Okay. And she talks in the interview about the the bottle of alcohol she was drinking.
That's correct.
Prior to the argument. Do you remember if there was a bottle of alcohol found at the scene?
There was. It was on a bed, if I remember correctly.
Okay. On a bed in one of the bedrooms?
Yes.
And that was the same bedroom where the suicide device was?
I believe so.
Okay. And that was the same sort of alcohol she said it was?
Yes.
Now, the .357 Magnum, Smith & Wesson, that was found loaded and ready for use in the suicide device, correct?
That's correct.
And she told you in the interview that's where it would be.
Yes.
You didn't find any string or any rope with that device in 2007, did you?
We did not.
During her interview, Claudia talks about searching the internet for various items such as how to commit suicide, and says she was looking at committing suicide, right?
That's correct.
And you and as part of the investigation, her computer was taken.
Yes.
And as part of the investigation, it was analyzed by BCI.
Yes.
And they gave the results to the investigation team.
Yes.
Did you look to see whether or not she had been searching for suicide and all of that on her computer?
There were searches consistent with suicide searches, yes.
Okay. During the interview, she tells you she remembers only firing the first shot, right?
Well, she said she fired 3 quickly.
Right, but she specifically says she remembers the first shot. She remembers him being on the third step and shooting.
She talks about him being on the first step. She knew that was the first shot.
Okay.
And she remembered, I remember because even in the video we talked about, she was talking about how his foot buckled or something like that. His foot buckled, I'm sorry.
Okay. And she says she fired 3 shots, but she doesn't remember where or anything about that. The first shot, she can tell you fairly specifically, I shot him, he was on the first step, I remember.
Third step, I think she said.
Yes.
Third step.
On the third step, she specifically remembers it.
Yes, so if that's First shot, she said she fired 3 shots quickly, is what she said originally.
But she can't tell you much with specificity after that other than she fired 2 more shots.
No, there was, she was a little cloudy on the other shots at times.
And during the interview, she tells you that she had read various articles and items, and she was aware that he'd been shot 5 times.
That's correct.
Okay.
She was reading the internet down there, I believe is what she said, down in Brazil.
But despite knowing that, she tells you she only remembers shooting him 3 times.
Yes.
Okay. And as she talks about the interview, she says that after shooting him 3 times, she thought she had 2 bullets and went to try and commit suicide in the house.
That's correct.
And the gun, she thought misfired, right?
She thought misfire bad bullets. That's what she said.
And she said she went to the basement and she unloaded the gun and put new rounds in.
That's correct.
And you found in the basement shell casings from the gun, right?
Yes, would be consistent with that reload.
Okay. You didn't find any bullets that had been misfired or
No.
were bad?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Now, during the interview that we watched, you told Claudia you were familiar with the Hogtied website.
Yes.
I'm going to assume that was because of this investigation.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get fired. Yes.
Okay. And was that from back in 2007?
It was. That was one of the internet searches. Yes.
Okay. Whose internet searches?
One of the things BCI would have given back to us, let us know what websites were being visited.
Okay.
So I looked at it.
And there were 2 computers.
Yes.
Okay, so- And this was on not the computer with all of Claudia's files, but the other computer.
I can't be sure, but it was on one.
But somebody had been on the Hogtied website.
That's correct.
And you checked it out to see it was on that website.
I did, briefly.
And is it what we think it is?
If I recall correctly, it was some sort of bondage type picture that I saw. And
Okay. So it was a bondage website?
yeah, yes.
The state has indicated during opening and otherwise, their theory of the case is that Mr. Hoerig was sitting at the bottom of the steps when he was shot putting his shoes on, correct?
Yes.
No witness has ever told you that he sat on the bottom of the steps to put his shoes on.
No.
No witness told any other investigator that he ever did that.
No.
Did any witness tell you that he'd seen him, that he was seen sitting on the steps before he was shot?
No.
Do you know which step he was sitting on?
No.
Now, you're familiar with the crime scene. You've been there, looked at all of the various parts of it?
Yes.
Okay. There's no closet near the steps, are there?
Which steps are you referring
The
to?
steps that you say he was shot putting his shoes on.
Closet near that? I don't know if there's a little linen closet up there or not. There's a couple doorways up there in that hallway.
If I may, Your Honor. I'm going to show you. Stand here so everybody can kind of see. Move back so you guys can kind of see it. That's State's Exhibit C, or no, State's Exhibit.
I don't think that's an exhibit.
That's part of State's Exhibit. So it's been used, right?
It's C out of Jester's exhibit.
Okay. So this is diagram C out of State's Exhibit 85. Do you recognize this?
That would have been, that's what Jeff testified to his recreation of the crime scene.
Okay. Does that jive with your memory of what the house looked like?
Yeah.
And do you see a closet near the steps?
Now this would be the first floor. When you walk in the door there, the 2 steps up to the right. Right there, what are those gray, off the steps there, those gray things with the 3 arrows? By the feet, kind of?
Here?
Yeah, what's that?
Those are the pillars.
Oh, okay.
So this is the steps.
Yeah,
those
no,
are the pillars.
I don't see a closet.
Okay. you don't see a closet. Now, on this, there is a closet shown down in the bottom by the foyer, correct?
Okay, yes,
And this is the front door is down here. There's the double front door we came in.
yes,
And you come in the front door, and then there's 3 steps up, correct?
2 or 3.
Nice wide steps, easy to sit in. Correct?
Sure,
Okay. And the area he was shot in was carpeted, is it not?
yes. Had plastic over the carpet, if I remember right.
Okay. Do you have any explanation why Mr. Hoerig will be sitting on those steps to put his shoes on and not the steps nearer to the door of the closet?
No, I do not.
Let me show you what's been marked as A1. They're F-bound. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, those are photographs of Carl Hoerig as he was found and a couple of the surrounding areas and items.
Okay. I want you to look at photograph A1. Now, it's the state's position that Mr. Hoerig was sitting on the steps putting his shoes on, correct?
Near the bottom of the steps, yes?
What? Near the bottom
Yes.
steps with his shoes on. In that photograph, one of his shoes is shown, correct?
2 of his shoes are shown.
Okay. Which are the shoes that are shown? Are they facing the steps or are they facing away from the steps?
Toe towards the steps, one on one side of the body, one on the other.
Okay. Now, if I'm sitting on the steps putting my shoes on, which direction are the toes of my shoes facing?
Well, if you're sitting on the steps, putting your shoes on, I would assume your toes of your shoes would be facing the other way.
Okay. So in that photograph, the shoes that were found are facing the opposite direction.
Yes.
Now, if I'm sitting on the steps, my left shoe is going to be on my left side, and my right shoe is going to be on my right side. Correct?
Yes.
In that photograph, which shoe is the one closest to the step? Which shoe is that?
Looks like that'd be the right shoe.
Okay, and that would be on Mr. Hoerig's left side as he's sitting on the step?
You mean? Well, he's not sitting on the step in this picture.
No, but your theory, the state's theory, he is sitting on the step. He is ambushed by Ms. Hoerig, who comes down the stairs, shooting in the back multiple times, correct?
Okay.
And that, he falls where he lays and he dies, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, there's 2 shoes shown there. We've already established the shoes are facing the steps instead of facing.
That's correct.
out.
Yes.
His right shoe is on his left side in that photograph, correct?
Yeah, more towards his back. It's by his buttocks.
Okay, but if he was sitting on the steps, that is, and he's sitting on
Yes.
the steps looking
If you're putting him on the steps, yes, you're correct.
it would be on his left side. And his other shoe is on the other side.
Yes, several feet away from the
Several
step.
feet? And that is the same for all of those photographs. Exhibits A1 through F1.
Are you referring to the shoes, sir?
Yes. They're in the same position in all of those photographs.
That's correct.
Can you explain to me how his shoes came to be in that position if he was shot sitting on the steps putting them on?
I can't.
Okay. Now,
Unless they would have been in his hands. I mean, give you an idea, maybe.
okay. There's also another item shown in Exhibit A1 near the steps. What is that?
Are you referring to the left side of the photo or the top right?
Is there a water bottle?
There's a water bottle.
Okay. Have you figured out how the water bottle fits in to the putting your shoes on at the bottom of the steps, Gary?
Maybe taking water with you or...
You don't know?
No, don't know.
Now, have you ever sat in a chair or sat on some steps and fell forward?
Sure.
Okay. And if you put your legs out after you fall forward, what happens?
Can you rephrase that?
You ever sat in a chair or sat on steps and fell forward? Right? If you put your legs out, what do?
Well, if you know you're falling, I'm assuming you're going to use your legs to try to catch yourself.
And you kick the chair away, don't you?
I mean, that would depend.
Or you kick the stairs?
Possible.
We look at Exhibit E1. Mr. Hoerig's feet are some distance away from the steps, correct?
Well, I would guesstimate his right foot would be probably less than a foot from that bottom step, I would think.
Okay. Now, we've been out to the house, and you've been out to the house numerous times. The stairway we're talking about is not what I would call a full stairway, right? It doesn't go up a full level of the house.
Minus those two to three step up when you first come in.
So it's shorter. It's 6 feet tall.
I want to say there's 10 steps. I want to say I counted it the other day when we were there as I walked up on my.
Okay, but and it's not very wide either, is it?
No, it's not real wide.
Okay. And so if he was in Miss Hoerig's mind 3 steps down when she first shot him, right? He would have not fallen the full length of the steps.
He would, if she says she shot him on the 3rd step, and that's accurate, my math would tell me he fell 7 steps.
Okay. And Mr. Hoerig was about 6 feet tall?
Yes.
Okay. So if he fell forward from the 3rd step, he'd probably end up falling almost the whole length of the steps?
Well, that would depend on how he fell, I guess.
But we're not talking like we see on the cartoons where somebody falls down the steps and rolls and rolls and rolls.
Yeah, I don't know how this witness can answer these kind of questions.
That's fine. I will move on, Your Honor. Officer York, the theory that he was sitting on the steps when he was shot is just out of theory, correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, if I may publish the pictures to the jury. I'll hand those to you and those to you. If you guys can just pass them around to look at them. If I may have a moment to also discuss with my co-counsel, Your Honor. I realize I've asked this, but my client wants me to ask it again. You didn't find a cord or a string near the suicide device in the upstairs back room?
No.
That's it? Okay, one second. On the video, Ms. Hoerig talked to you about how her suicide device worked, right?
Yes.
Okay. And on the video, you asked her if she used a string or how she pulled the trigger.
I don't recall asking her if she used a string or how she pulled the trigger. What we talked about was, when we found that, we weren't real sure what it was. It's not something you see every day. So we didn't know at the time. And I told her, I said, yeah, we thought it could have been a booby trap, like with the string, and I believe that's where you're going with that, where you open the door and the weapon fires because it was locked to the rear, the hammer was back, it was fully loaded. Also thought of other things possibly that could have been used for, but we never really knew until, she told her story.
And she told you that the way she was going to use it was to put her hand around and pull the trigger.
She told me it was to avoid the recoil, to ensure that her shot placement ended up where it was where it was intended, I guess.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Yes, Your Honor, just a couple. if someone is shot putting their shoes on, we would expect movement if something like a bottle was in their hand.
Yes, and I guess that would be based on the severity of the gunshot.
We know that he's like this, and his shoes, one is under him, and you have the bottle in that scene, correct?
That's correct.
And you weren't there to see how this man reacted when he was shot in the back, were you?
I was not.
And you never, in all the years that she was gone, in any report, referred to where the gun was in that piece of wood as a suicide device, did you?
I think I called it a contraption, I think is what I kind of referred to it as, even in the interview, I believe, or my reports.
And the record speaks for yourself when you talked to her about that, when you, for the first time, understood what she thought it was, correct?
Can you rephrase that or repeat that?
You had a conversation about that device with her,
Yeah,
and how you waited 11 years to hear something.
Yes, I even
Because
brought
you
it into
couldn't
the
figure it
interview.
out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Recross? No. All right, you may step down. Thank you. Take the calls. Next witness.
I got a Dr. Thomas.
No.
Oh, you go. Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead. No problem.
Your Honor, the state would call Krista Bridges.
It's Krista, Bridges, Bridges.
Okay. Would you please, and if you can, just make sure that microphone's close enough to your mouth.
Hello,
All right, there you go. Would you tell the jury your name, please?
my name is Krista Bridges.
Krista, how old are you?
I'm 41.
And are you married?
Yes, I am.
All right. Krista, I want to take you back about a dozen years ago to a point in time when you were at a bachelorette party of a friend that you know named Amy Swegan. Do you remember being at a bachelorette party back in 2006 in August for that bachelorette party?
Yes.
What can you tell us about, first of all, where that bachelorette party was?
It was in downtown Cleveland.
And can you tell the jury who Amy Swegan is?
Amy Swegan is the wife of one of my really good friends from the Air Force Reserve, Chris Swegan.
All right. And somehow, prior to August of 2006, you knew a gentleman by the name of Carl Hoerig. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did you know Carl Hoerig?
I was friends with Carl as well in the Air Force Reserve. He was trying to help me become an officer.
All right. You were in the Air Force Reserve then as well?
Correct.
All right. And when you met Carl, there were a number of, I'm going to call them, I think they were all pilots, that were friends with a group of friends and their wives or girlfriends. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, at that time, were you married?
No.
All right. And at this time of this bachelorette party, when you were in Cleveland, was there an individual who was married to Carl Hoerig named Claudia Hoerig present?
Yes.
Had you known Claudia before this date?
I've met her a couple times prior to that time.
Through your relationship with Carl Hoerig?
Yes, that's right.
And what was your relationship with Carl Hoerig prior to August of 2006?
He was a good friend. We would go to parties together, and we served together. We deployed together in the desert. So I knew him pretty well.
Okay. So you'd actually served overseas with him?
Correct.
You were friends with him. You were both in the Army Reserve. I'm sorry, Air Force
Air Force,
Reserve.
yes.
Yeah, Air Force Reserve. So tell us about the events of August 2006 when you had a discussion with Claudia Hoerig and there was a story being told about Carl.
So Michelle and Amy and the girls were all sitting there. We were talking about Carl in the cockpit. It was a funny story during deployment. And Claudia was sitting to my right. And all of a sudden during the story, she leaned over to me and said, if he ever leaves me, I'd kill him.
All right. And did that strike you how did that strike you at that time?
It threw me off guard a little bit. We weren't really talking anything like that. It was just a funny story. And so I kind of laughed it off, and she scoffed, but she wasn't really laughing. And so I thought it was weird, but people say that all the time. So
Sure, nothing unusual. And then an event happened sometime in March of 2007, approximately 7 months later. How did you become aware that Carl Hoerig had been found dead in his house in Newton Falls?
I received an email at my work at Bank of America that day that he had passed from a recall email. And then I went out and called Michelle right away, a mutual friend, who confirmed that it was Carl.
All right. And you have followed this case since that time, is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point in January, I believe, March of 2018 rather, or maybe before that, you made contact with the Trumbull County Sheriff's Department, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you advised them of pretty much what you've testified here today?
That's right.
Okay. The individual that you knew was Claudia Hoerig, who made the statement, if Carl ever left me or if he ever left me, I'd kill him. Do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yeah, she's sitting right there.
Okay. And who are you pointing at? Can you describe her clothing?
She's got black she's got the gray hair. She used to have black hair, but
Okay.
she still has the same bangs on her forehead.
Okay. Allow the record to reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
This witness is in
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So the first time you came forward and told the police about this was in March of 2018?
That's correct.
And why did you do that in March of 2018?
When I found out about Carl passing away, that was the first thought in my head. I remembered that incident. And when I was talking to my friend Dan Henry, who is a mutual friend, he said, you need to talk to Paul about that because we were reminiscing. And I said, that was the last time that I saw Claudia.
Well, that's not what I asked. What I asked was, why did you come forward in March of 2018?
Because I felt that it was pertinent to the case.
Okay. Why didn't you come forward in 2007?
Because at the time I still thought it was just a comment.
Okay. And in the next 11 years, why did you not come forward?
Because she was in Brazil and I just didn't.
Okay. And are you still in the Air Force Reserve?
No, I retired last April.
Okay. And you hung out with the same group of friends that Carl did?
Yes.
And you guys all want justice for Carl, correct?
Yeah.
And you all talk about what happened and when it happened?
Not all the time because they all live in different places.
Okay. So you waited 11 years to come forward with this information to the police, and now you're telling us about it today, right?
Right.
Okay. And you said on direct that this is the sort of thing people say all the time, I'll kill him if he leaves me, I'll kill him if he cheats, right?
Right, everybody says that sometimes.
So the questions I have.
Regret.
No, Your Honor.
You may step down. Although it's a little early, we want to take a break in mid-morning here, so we'll take a short 10-minute break now. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else.